Welcome to Be Kind Connects. I'm your host, Shabnam Islam. And today we have the president and co-founder of Thrilling Foods Bakon, David Jones. Now, David has arguably created the greatest vegan business endeavor of all time, a plant-based bacon that truly tastes, cooks, and crunches like the real thing. And alongside co-founder and CEO Jared Hansen, they have helped build and grow Thrilling Foods Bakon into a phenomenon coast to coast in just 2 years. Welcome to the show, David.
Thank you very much, Shabnam. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
I think we really appreciate you. Now, before we chew the fat, you see what I did there? I'd like to know who David Jones...
out already.
I would like to know who David Jones was before Thrilling Foods Bakon.
Well, television producer, doing well, doing that. But then COVID struck. And I think me, like everybody else, we were all sitting around at home. And I was on a floating home, fun place to be, in Portland on the river there.
Oh, and that's amazing.
My girlfriend, my significant other, is vegetarian, longtime vegetarian. And, for us to live together, it's clear that, I wouldn't be cooking up big steaks and things in the house. And I thought, that's better for my health and it's better for the world. And, I get that. And this is going to help me get there. My kids were vegetarian on and off, and, I always sort of watched from the sidelines and knew that that was a good place and supported them and cooked vegetarian and all of that. But here, it was right in my living room, so to speak. And so, I was, going with that, knowing it's good for my health, good for the world, but I was sure missing certain things. And bacon was one of them. And I thought, well, let me try some of those, vegan meats and see what they're like. And I did, and I didn't care for them. And not only did I not care for them, I didn't like the ingredients that I was seeing. So I tried to make my own, and I even looked at those ingredients, got those, and, didn't like them. And so I was really inspired to just start from scratch and start looking at how can we make, say, a vegan 2.0, something that's good for animals, good for the planet, but good for people too, and delicious. And so that was the challenge I was sitting with there, on the river.
That's amazing. So did you initiate your shift to a vegan lifestyle during COVID?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
So you started this shift of Thrilling Foods Bakon. You started a plant-based lifestyle all at once.
Right. And I think my move toward, I've always been a cook, as I say, and my language of love is cooking. That's one of my main ways to do for people. And it was through the fact that I was missing some chew and some crunch and some texture that meat I remembered from, and it was because of that vegan, vegetarian, embrace that I decided, well, maybe we could look at, making something better than what was out there.
Now, are you a classically trained chef, or are you just this home style cook? You like to really play in the kitchen?
I'll go head to head with anybody, perhaps not bakers, patissiere, they're really highly schooled, but I've been cooking since I was about 4 years old. I climbed up on the shelf, to get things out of the pantry, out of the cupboard that I saw my mom, do. I had counted, I could count. So that was a requisite, was counting. I made my first apple pie when I think I was about 4 years old, and successfully. The entire family, loved it. So I've been cooking ever since then, and I've cooked in restaurant kitchens, but never did I go to Cordon Bleu. There's still time, right?
I don't know if you need it. Now, let's be honest. How did you take your previous professional experience in production, communications, consulting, and develop this food tech phenomenon, Thrilling Foods?
Well, interesting. So the documentaries that I made for years and years prior to this switch were all heavily research oriented, and all of those facts had to be absolutely correct. So I had to learn to read research papers, medical journals, and be correct in what I was extracting and putting forth into these documentaries. They had to be flawlessly correct. So I became a pretty wicked researcher. And that is what it took when I realized, yeah, so tofu is great and it has this beautiful history. And, so what is its health history? I was able to research that to know that the health history surrounding tofu and cultures that eat tofu absolutely resoundingly is healthy and good. And there's a lot of misinformation. So I was able to get through that and know it for a fact. And when I began to look at what was being done in vegan food production and research how I might be able to change or modify tofu, I'm looking at learning about cations and anions and how salts disrupt or help with their bonding, and T7s and
You got into that chemistry. I love it. I love it because that's what it takes. It takes chemistry. It takes a heavy dose of science to really build a phenomenal product. And that's exactly what you did.
Yeah, I mean, when you make a soda risen biscuit with baking soda and a little vinegar or buttermilk, that's science and chemistry. You may not know what you're doing to do that, but to do something new, to make a brand new product that's never been around, I had to learn a little bit more than baking soda and vinegar tricks. But was really also feel profoundly lucky that some of the things worked out the way they did, because I could still be researching today.
Absolutely. Now, did you know people in food tech that you brought on immediately, or is this something that you were experimenting by yourself?
No, I really was doing this from my home as sort of a lark at first. And I did have neighbors that were eating some of the early experiments because they were interested and they were going crazy and saying, you've got to, take this to production now. We want to buy it. And they were driving me crazy. And, as I started to get a little more serious, I did work with a flavorist, a person who works with yeasts. And yeasts are, able to provide a lot of umami type flavors that we need if we're going to have, a deep meaty experience. Umami is, in Parmesan cheese and cantaloupe and lots of things. Mushrooms carry a lot of it. And so I'm working with them, and this person said, do you need a soy masking flavor? And I said, well, why soy masking? What for? And she said, well, because it tastes bad. And I said, no, soy doesn't taste bad. And she says, oh, you're working with fresh soybeans. And I said, yeah, sure. And she said, oh, I thought you were working with the isolates and the powders. Okay, so you won't need a soy masking flavor. So that is the sort of thing that happens when you're working with sort of industrial food people. It's sort of one bad thing leading to another, and it's not like restaurant cooking. It's not like home cooking. It's not like wholesome. It's every time you start working with some of those people, you might be stepping off into the highly processed food game, which I really was trying to move away from. And so,
I mean, you really are using whole food sources of soybean.
Yes. Yeah, we start with a whole soybean and we make soy milk, and we do some modifications to the old, 300 years old tofu process. We change it before you make the tofu. We've started changing, and that's what most of the research and work that I did to come up with a fat streaked, lean and fatty bacon was trying to find out what can you do to tofu that won't disrupt being able to make a solid curd cake out of soy milk. And believe me, there are a million things you can do that disrupt that, and you will have nothing but milk, at the end of your process. And there are a few things you can do, and I discovered what they are. So,
so I know you can't. I know you can't give us all of your trade secrets, of course, but this bacon salt cured and smoking process. How long did it actually take you to master the process and the flavor?
If you count all the false starts, which I think you should, because, where did you start to get it right? So it was a couple of years from false start to we're in new seasons now selling at the local, chain. because yeah, I started trying to affect the flavor of already whole, cake tofu, and discovered, of course, after all my, efforts, like many home chefs might know, it's really hard to flavor tofu because
Hmm.
it's still in the process of pushing water out. It's always wanting to push water out because it's hydrophobic, and it doesn't want to take anything in.
Hmm.
And very few things will actually penetrate a tofu cake. So it's like the more you slice it up, the more you chop it in little bits, the more you can get some flavoring to it. But I realized we had to go back and try to flavor it before it's tofu, and that's where a lot of the breakthroughs were, and a lot of the work was, because everything I did primarily originally, won't make tofu anymore. If you put in a bunch of salt, it won't make tofu. You've satisfied the molecular needs of those proteins when they're hot, and you get hot milk. That's all you get. And
Liquid bacon.
just learning to make tofu really well, which is what you have to do to change tofu into something new. Just that time was months, learning how to really make it well and understand what is it and how is this working, and what little tweaks can you make to change things. And so I had to become a tofu master before I could become a bacon master.
It's like Kung Fu Panda with noodles, you
Yeah,
know?
sling that.
So, if you don't mind me asking, why were you so stuck on using the tofu bean curd? Did you try any other process? Was like mycoproteins or? Uh,
Yeah, absolutely. Um, you know, there were a lot of things that I did try, and I will share one with you and your listeners. Take any mushrooms. If they're big, slice them if you want, but smoke them. Smoke them for a couple of hours, and then deep fat fry them. Fry them in lots of fat and salt them, and serve them with your favorite dip, like a horseradish sauce or something. And let me just tell you, all of your party guests, vegan, vegetarian, meat eaters, that will be gone in no time. That's a really good thing that I did somewhere through there. Was I was making bacon from big trumpet mushrooms,
hmm.
smoking them, and reminding myself that smoking and salting do need to be a part of the bacon process, because I did used to make pork bacon in another life way back in Europe, where I learned. And so tofu just ended up being something, of all the foods that we do know, if we could just use traditional foods instead of some super new processed franken meat. I was really just concerned not to be foisting that or sharing that with the public who's hungry for a healthy, harm-free bacon. I
Hmm.
really felt like it was going to be very important to make sure the people are getting something healthy. So to look at tofu and see that it has this super healthy background. They have people that eat tofu, say one serving a day. In certain cultures, they have less heart disease and less cancer than we do by a long shot, by a measurable amount. And so that's probably part of it. Can't say that that's all of what it is, but it certainly didn't harm. It's a better health record than we do. And so to figure out a way to take something that is meaty and work with it, to get the flavors just right and to increase the fats and all of that, um, it just worked out. And I'm glad that it did. I see a lot of competitors doing a lot of different things, like konjac with rice and things like that. And I never wanted to do that. I wanted to have something that was so exactly bacon that it would fry in the pan in its own fat. It would be meaty and chewy. And it would, if you're looking in your diet to take on some protein and fat, those macronutrients, this is what bacon, our BAKON, would bring you. We're not wanting to substitute a different set of macronutrients for bacon. We don't want to turn it into a carbohydrate thing, especially
Hmm.
as sensitive as people are about carbohydrates and diabetics and people on keto and all of that. Let's just keep it, high protein, high fat. Um, and so I stuck with as close as I could to what how plant-based could produce something very, very much like bacon, and it was tofu.
And I want to go back to something you just said, that you used to actually process and cure real bacon, real
Mhm.
pig flesh into bacon. Um, tell me about how. What?
How did that happen? Well, you start with a shot of vodka in the morning. Let me tell you, that was the first thing that I went, oh my gosh, what am I in for? All of these people, I was in Hungary, and all the folks involved were all doing a couple of shots. And I thought, okay, I'll have mine too. And, this was on a farm. This is the way you do it. And it was, uh, a relief to see that the animal didn't really suffer, but it was still, horrific. I was there and present for the death of an animal. And, I had always said before, I'd probably be vegetarian if I had to shoot or kill every animal I ever ate, but it was just served to me from packages by my mother. I mean, like mother's milk, so I didn't question it. But to be right there witnessing and present, I never forgot that. This is where your bacon comes from, is through the suffering and screaming of an animal who it knew, something was up. But that's also how I learned how bacon is made, in that a lot of those traditional curing processes are used in our product today. And those traditional processes are almost fallen by the wayside as far as how pork bacon is produced today as well. They no longer dry salt cure. They no longer actually smoke in hardwood like we do. So good, I guess, that I had the experience, but bad too.
And I want to talk a little bit about that, because it doesn't seem like you went vegan for your health or any particular reason. It was almost out of convenience, out of a partnership and a loving relationship you have, which I think is just, it's beautiful. It's beautiful growth, right? But over this process of time of you creating your own vegan company and seeing the success, what kind of impacts have you seen individually on yourself? And what kind of initiatives has this made you want to take a part of in the future?
Well, so the more you move into this ethos, this, veganism and everything surrounding it, whether people are vegetarian, vegan, they're flexitarian, they're trying to cut out more. I mean, the more you're sharing with other people who are strengthening your thoughts, the more you're seeing more media, seeing, the tear come down from a cow's face, who's frightened. I've never seen that before. So it's something that's more and more. And so to say to stop drinking milk and then to go back and try it again, like somebody hands you a latte and to realize, no, ew, I'm not into that anymore. It's
You
a
just
journey.
said ew.
It's, yeah, it's a journey. It didn't happen all at once for me, and I really feel like it doesn't for most people either. Most people
Yeah.
do this in starts and fits, because I've gotten to talk to an awful lot of people, and they tell me, I fell off the wagon, or thank you for helping me, with this bacon, because this will help me because it was bacon that got me last time, or whatever. So, there are a gazillion flexitarians, and I think they're very understanding of what I went through, and you might get to meet some vegans that have been struggling with this for so long. It's like, yeah, welcome aboard, buddy. Now get in here and and pitch and do what you can. I was just unaware of how much of a frustrating fight it's been for so long for some people who are so deeply involved. And I'm glad in any way that I can support them. Now, if bacon ends up helping the cause, BAKON, I'll be thrilled.
And Thrilling Foods just received the first U.S. patent for world's first protein-bound fat streaked plant-based bacon. Congratulations.
Well, thank you.
Um,
Another
this,
miracle.
this is a big deal, right?
It was at first, believe it or not. So, you had said trade secrets. There's no trade secrets anymore. It's in a patented. It's all on record with the U.S. Patent Office, and you can get it. How's the bacon made? And so for a while after we submitted, they said, no, none of this is patentable. And we went, oh no, it's all going to be put out there. It's not patentable. What did we do wrong? And we visited with the patent office, and they said, oh, we'll change this word and that word and this word. And we went, yeah, okay. And we changed those words, and then it all did receive a patent. So we were sort of blown away. And the firm that was involved in helping us get the patent, was saying, "Hey, congratulations! Very few companies get the entire request patented. It's usually a little bit, or this and that." And so
So,
I feel very fortunate.
so this basically means that you guys have the ultimate proprietorship, ownership to this way of creating vegan bacon. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, just on that basis that it's a tofu-like product that is multi-layered with lean and fat texture and so forth. So but it didn't seem like anybody wanted to do it until now. I tell you, the innovation surrounding tofu is really remarkable, or the
Mhm.
lack of innovation, I should say. So today, if you go to the grocery store, you'll see a tub and it's filled with water and a piece of tofu, and the ingredients are exactly the same as they were 200 years ago. So talk about traditional and no change, and people kind of being worried that, yeah, if you do one little thing you won't have tofu. I mean, that was certainly my experience, but I know you can do things now. And it wasn't like I'm a rocket scientist, but I am pretty shocked that there's just no innovation surrounding an absolutely extraordinary protein. We have so much promise. So Thrilling Foods will be coming out with a lot more things, based on the fact that there's a legume out there that has 19 amino acids, 9 of which you must have, but it has them all, and it can provide a chewy, can be high fat, can be very satisfying. Um, One interesting thing, just the water alone in tofu containers, if
Mhm.
it was salted, if that water was salted, a brine, not only would it preserve the tofu longer for shelf life, but it would make a tastier product just because it's got a little salt in it.
Hmm.
There's salt in tofu. So people are eating, when they try a piece of tofu and go, ew, well, they're eating a completely unsalted protein, which you don't normally come across that. And so there's not even the innovation of salt, in tofu. So it's wide open, and we'll see what we can do with the rest of the innovation surrounding it. We're
I love
hoping
that.
for the
I love
ham,
that.
all kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, so let's talk about Thrilling Foods and your initiatives and where you guys see yourselves. So, what would you say is Thrilling Foods' greater mission?
Um, Vegan 2.0. I think it's that we do know that. So vegans get a little frustrated because it's about the animals. It's all about the animals, all about saving lives. But at the same time, you have to admit there are some follow-on consequences that are amazing for the world: sustainability, reduced carbon footprint. It's a healthier, the last few years, they finally come out with scientific study after scientific study that proves that actually a vegan lifestyle does put years on your life. And that was not really clear for quite some time. So, to me, it's just win, win, win. And so the real problem was with the vegan lifestyle was that it was being good to animals, but it wasn't being good to human bodies. I feel like there
Right.
was a lot of the most highly processed food involved. And these young people who wanted to change the world and be kind to animals were not necessarily being kind to their own bodies. So I
Mhm.
would like for Thrilling Foods to always be at the forefront of lowest processing, least harm to any creature, to the world, to our customers, just to be a low harm company and be able to talk about it. Every decision we make, um, be able to talk about it and say, we're doing our best here. If you've got a better idea, or anyone does, we're looking, we're open. But that's, I think, our credo is to feed the world well and do no harm.
Right? Low harm, big impact, and even bigger flavor.
It's got to taste good. All the flexitarians that we're targeting, that big group in the bell curve who will reduce meat, who will move toward veganism. If you don't meet them more than halfway, if you don't meet them with something close, it's not going to happen. And if we do meet them with something close, it is going to happen. And that's just the plain and simple fact. You're not going to stay on the grocery store shelves unless you're really, really, really close. And
Right.
to be able to serve a meat up that all by itself, just warm in a little cup, here you go, makes people thrilled and happy. Um, that's a great target for anyone that wants to be in this business. Just make sure it doesn't need all the trappings to pass. We don't want to just pass.
Right. And so what strategic partnerships and initiatives are you and Thrilling Foods taking a part of to really make that impact in the plant-based sphere or in the flexitarian sphere, if I could be so honest?
Initiatives, partnerships, that sounds really heady. We're heads down trying to figure out how to make a lot more of this bacon just to survive, because we're not in a profitable situation really. As you grow and expand, it's always costing you way more than you take in on sales. And so,
Absolutely.
our initiatives right now are survive, raise funds and that kind of thing. Um, as far as partnerships, we'll partner with anyone. We partner up, promoting, animal shelters and farm retirement bureaus, etc. Any way that we can help. We give away bacon to a lot of groups like nonprofits, and give it away to the Tofurkey Trot, and
Mhm.
we're just involved in our community as much as we can be.
Now, are you finding some real traction in the non-plant-based sphere?
That's interesting. You should say that. Shabanan, I did this survey at the farmers market where I will go just because it's so good to have all day people getting in front of you, trying bacon and talking to you and letting you know. And they're from all walks of life and everything. So I wanted to do a survey that said, look, here's some little glass beads. If it's 0% like bacon, drop it in there. And there was a little place you could just drop your vote in. You couldn't
Mhm.
see how anybody else voted. And I thought, before I do this, you know what? I should have like a red glass bead and a green glass bead. And I'll ask, because I wanted to segregate the vote somehow of people that are vegan and vegetarian and what they thought about bacon from meat eaters, And so these were all customers that were coming up to buy bacon. And I said, you've had it before, since they were buying it again. We identified that. Would you mind doing this vote? And identify, if you're a meat eater, pick up a red one. So at the end of the vote, we had 2/3 of the beads in there were red. So
Wow.
it turns out that 2/3 of our customers, of our repeat customers, are meat eaters, identify as meat eaters, whether it's flexitarians or what. But and that they vote the exact same. The greens and the reds were in the same distribution. It wasn't different, which I thought it would be. So there was no point in doing the differentiation. But
No, there is always a point in doing a differentiation. As a scientist, I will also agree. You need to know your population.
turns out
So
Turns out, yeah. So we learned that 2/3 of our buyers in grocery stores and wherever identify as meat eaters. So
that's
we feel like
beautiful.
we're hitting the target. If we can make meat eaters come back and buy again and again, then we can change the world. That is what you need.
Right.
It's there.
Yeah, because for vegans, we're like, oh my God, I found my plant-based bacon. Like, I don't need to go anywhere else. It's a staple in my household, and now it's becoming a staple in my clients' households because it's just we
Right.
pass it on by word of mouth, right? But to get in the hands of a meat eater or a flexitarian, it's really powerful because you really they make the choice themselves, and all because of your product, and that's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it seems like the coercion's out there. We don't need any more coercion. The information about the science and health, it's there. We just need the good products. Right now, if the stores were full of good, super good alternative products, it would only take a few months for the adoption process to completely occur. It takes 2 weeks for us. Once we're in the store, 2 weeks, and we're the best-selling bacon in any grocery store. And that's just because of, I guess, the way it looks, and then they rebuy, and so it doesn't take long to get adopted if you've got what it takes.
I think you should team up with the local university in Portland, and their nutrition and dietetic center, and see if they can do a little study on people consuming only real bacon or your bacon over the course of 4 to 6 weeks, and seeing if that has any impact on any metabolic panels. It would be a pretty fascinating study to see. I mean, I'm sure flavor would
Well,
also be a
you
count,
can
but
help me, and we'll put your name, on the top.
let me see what I can get going with that, because I actually find that really interesting, and I think I think it really does talk a little bit about the impacts that you want to see with your food, right? Because if you can be eating bacon without having the detrimental impacts on your health and cholesterol,
Mhm.
and leading towards diabetes, then that's exactly what you want with your food. You want it
Yeah,
to be your medicine.
we've had some doctors at some trade shows come in that were looking for products and saying, okay, I'm going to write you into my book, and or we're going to get this in all of the nursing homes or what have you. So there's been some initial interest on a purely health kick that's not about trying to avoid meat, just that, well, this is healthier than meat. So fingers crossed that we'll be in all the nursing homes soon, and providing a healthy alternative.
That's amazing. And I think you're thinking about populations who could really actually benefit from this. And I think that is a beautiful thing, because it really shows the creative mission behind Thrilling Foods it's just beyond the palate. It goes deeper than just tasty, which I love. But what I'd also like to hear is, do you guys have any future product lines in the future? Like,
Oh
what's
yeah.
coming up in store?
So interesting. Before I did bacon, I was actually working on spam, a spam type product, because I love musubis. I'm from Portland, and we're halfway there here. They just show up everywhere. It's a cult favorite. And from Texas, Austin, they have the Festival of Spam. So I grew up around it. It's a fun pop food. So we're working on that. We're working on a like 2-day long smoked ham that would hang in a smokehouse. It have a fat cap and
Wow.
lunch meat slices or thick slices or whole or half hams. We're looking at other charcuterie. So other chefs have said, well, can you just give us the whole sides, and we'll cut up lardons. We have bacon bits that are already going out to restaurants. A very large grocery store chain asked us to look into doing a non-pepper based one, just a maple topped bacon. So that's developed for them, and will probably show up on stores this year. Ready to eat lines of bacon are being looked at for being sent out to major coffee shops and things like that. The largest coffee shop in the world has reached out to us to supply them in 2023, and so eventually I would like to be able to understand and do better with fermented charcuterie. Prosciutto and salamis and all those things have been hung for long enough that there's been a microbial action to change the flavor, change the texture. And so thinking about making a thrilling salami that basically you put sauerkraut juice, you inoculate it with sauerkraut juice, because there's all your acetobacteria that can work well in a salt environment and can develop flavor. So we hopefully we'll be coming up with an entire charcuterie line at some point. But I
That is
want all of those.
fascinating.
I believe, just like with the cashew cheese that's been inoculated with Penicillium roqueforte, it's Penicillium roqueforte that gives you the flavor. The real inoculum that gives you the real flavor. So you don't have to come up with these flavorists trying to imitate the flavor of something, when if you'll just use those microbes that we classically use, you can have that flavor without artificial flavors. And
So it's just a result of the enzymatic process.
Exactly.
That is so rad. God, I love science. This part I don't understand, but what I do understand is that it works, and that to me is just ridiculously fascinating and utterly intriguing. And I could see how you went down the rabbit hole to create Thrilling Foods with this, particularly during the pandemic. So, wow. So where do you see Thrilling Foods in 5 years, David? Where do you want to be?
In 5 years, we'll be international, because we were in Singapore for fundraising, and we had requests for meetings from some of the biggest distributors in Asia saying, we want your product and how do we get it? And so there's a huge hyper demand all over the world. I'm surprised, for bacon, for a smoked, salted bacon type product. And it's an entry that would get us into Europe and Asia, etc. And, the follow-up products. So I imagine we will be a multi-billion-dollar organization if we don't have any major trips or anything. We'll just keep doing fundraising and building factories. Our first one is going in Portland, it looks like, this year, to 10 times our output supply so that we can satisfy
Wow.
distribution in the United States for
Wow.
just that single product. But there'll be room on the floor to expand into multiple products. It's about 15,000 square foot factory we're looking at building. So,
Fantastic.
yeah.
And are you currently warehoused in Portland?
We have two commercial kitchens. We had one, then we had to get a second one, and we run everything in between them. Now smoking's done over here, and meat production's done over here, and we're going into second shift now. Yesterday, second shift successfully ran for the first time, so that we can double there, and so we're doubling on the doubling. And we're at a point where how much we sell in a month equals basically a $1 million gross sales. So we're about to hit $1 million sales, for the first time.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's worth celebrating. That is worth celebrating.
And it's all just because people want the product really bad, and when they taste it, they have this great reaction, and they, there's just been no no's almost at all for us. It's just we've not had to advertise. We've not spent a penny on advertisement really. We're on Instagram, but there's a huge demand for a healthy, good tasting bacon, harm-free bacon product.
That's right. And so let's go back to Singapore, because I think traveling has your heart, and I think we've kind of talked about this before. And you love Asia, right? Like, you've been to Thailand, you love Singapore, and Asia has a really, really big market for cultivated meat, for cell-based meat. I mean, they are becoming the leaders. So tell us a little bit about what's going on there with Thrilling Foods.
Well, I put some extra days. We were invited to Singapore to come debut along with 5 other alt protein companies, and in front of a bunch of international investors there. So the date was really it's just one day, but I booked a few days on either side, jet lag, but also I did a documentary on Singapore for Fodor's back in 1988, and really knew Singapore like the back of my hand. I spent months there, preparing for this documentary that I produced, and so it was fun to go back and check it all out and eat everything. I ate durian for breakfast. I ate durian for dinner. Didn't get in trouble with the hotel, but I smuggled durian into the hotel, and you're not supposed to. But yeah, I've traveled Asia quite a bit. I was in Beijing when the riots happened. The hunger strikes. Wow. I watched the tanks rolled in, and we got out the next day. But we were there in 1989 for the revolution that failed. So I've spent a lot of time in Asia, traveling for documentary work that I did before. So it's fun to come back for a completely different reason, because Asia loves, they were ahead of us. They've had a Buddhist and groups that have other dietary issues and things. So they've had alternative meats over there for quite some time. I mean, it is the home of tofu. Yeah, there's a lot of resonance, and they are definitely ahead of us. And there's a lot of money over there for investment. Yeah.
And so, did you have some success?
Yes, we're talking with several groups, and it will continue. A lot of that is going to be shared through lots of channels, and so it's not like you normally would have people with several stacks of $1 million coming running up to you. I want to invest right now. It's a little sidling up period of time, but yeah, it was well worth going. And we have one group that's the largest restaurant chain in Asia that has already written us a letter of intent that we can use to help our growth in that region. So it was pretty productive and fun.
Yeah. So, what I can't help but get out of my head that you're creating a new product line of like ham and deli meats. Like, how much longer do we have to wait to taste these products?
Well, that's a good question. It's tough for me to spend my time across as the company is stronger and stronger, and we get production growth handled. I can focus more and more on product development. You had said president. and co-founder. My actual title is founder, and Jared, my CEO, is my co-founder, and I'm now CPO. He is CEO, and so CPO is the Chief Products Officer, and so it will be my job to keep coming up with these things, and to be able to concentrate on that will be great. We're, you know, we're more than a few experiments away from putting the icing on the cake. That's for sure.
Right.
We have things like bits that will bring out retail. We've got different alternatives of bacon that we'll be bringing out, different cuts, things like that. But for the Spam and the ham, it'll be sometime later this year, I'm hoping. But we have to get over my perfectionism. Like when the neighbors were eating bacon going, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing. You've got to put this on the market. I'm thinking, no, there's no way. There's too many things wrong with it, too many flaws. I'm trying to change this flavor a little bit. I'm trying to get that texture this way. And so it took me quite a while to be convinced to go ahead and drop that on the market, that bacon. And it's little changed since then. But I just had to learn to, wow, that many people love it. So I guess I was wrong to try to hold it up. Well, I have to fight that I just want it to be absolutely as perfect as possible before it comes out, as healthy as possible, as tasty as possible, texture-wise, that you feel like you're not giving up anything, that you may actually be gaining something. Some people say bacon to them tastes better than, pork bacon. So great. Hopefully we'll get the same result with ham and a Spam type product.
And where can everybody currently buy your products retail?
Well, the easiest thing is to go to thrillingfoods.com and go to the Find Bacon Near Me page, because we are sold all of, from Hawaii to Portland, Maine, but it's spotty in that, normally you would have a giant distribution deal with several giant distributors, and it would get you to every Safeway and Tom Thumb, whatever, Kroger's. And we're not quite there yet because we don't have that volume. So what we have are lots of sort of specialty stores across the nation and restaurants that have reached out and said, "Can you please send us some?" And we said, "Yeah, sure." And that's where most all of our bacon is going. We've got really good distribution in Portland, obviously, where we're home base, and down in LA, places like that, Las Vegas, believe it or not, is really blowing up vegan.
It would be the next place for me to move, just based off of the vegan sphere. The food there is phenomenal.
It's such a surprise. Yeah. Crossroads Kitchen opened up there.
Yep.
The Wynn and the MGM were asking when can they get bacon, things like that. So
that's great. That's great. So I'd like to end with this. You are a man who has reinvented himself time and time again, and particularly more so during the pandemic when a lot of people kind of fell apart. You came together. What words of advice would you have for someone who is feeling stuck and maybe is not in the right path and sees your story? What do you have to say?
I think that asking yourself really honestly, what are your gifts? And if you don't know, ask some other people and try to figure out what am I good at? What brings me joy? And so you may have a job that is not that right now, but if you know what you are good at and what you enjoy and love to do, that can give you the watchful eye to know when a door opens. If you hadn't decided that I'd really like to be within my dharma or whatever, that I really want to give my best to the world and that'll make me happy. Once you know what that is and kind of where you're going, then doors do open all the time. And you can take advantage and walk through that door and be brave and try it. And I definitely had to be brave to do this. I spent all my retirement money, but it was something I could believe in. And, I think that's what it takes, is that you're in the right ballpark enough that you believe in what you're doing, and that'll bring you success eventually.
Well, David, thank you so much for your bravery, for your belief in yourself, and for joining us today. And that wraps up this episode of Be Kind Connects with Thrilling Foods founder and Chief Product Officer, David Jones. Now, if you're looking for a plant-based bacon that looks, cooks, and tastes just like the real thing and is better for your health, the environment, and your taste buds, make sure to get your hands on some Thrilling Foods Bacon, available for purchase at www.thrillingfoods.com. And to watch this Be Kind Connects episode and many more, subscribe to our Be Kind Vibes YouTube channel and stay connected with us in the vegan community. Give us a follow on Instagram at Be Kind App and download the Be Kind app today.